our newest Arizona drag racing legend, Bob Flora. I thought I'd do that to you. We've known, been looking forward to this one. Known Mr. Flora for such, a couple years now, and
Yeah, one or two.
about 40-something years, and he's one of the guys who's raced, but he's also built a lot of, helped people build their dream cars and made things come possible from just local racers to, even at one time he was one of the guys helping Larry Nance get his hot rods going when he was with the Phoenix Suns. So, a lot of great history. So tell me about yourself. Where are you from?
Born in Cleveland, Ohio. Moved to Arizona, to Apache Junction in 1960, and
Did you bring your parents with you, or did they come with you?
yeah, they
Oh,
came
yeah,
with
you
us.
did, okay.
Yeah.
So what was it like? So you're very young. You don't remember much of Cleveland, probably, other than being cold.
It was snow.
Snow.
Lots of snow. My
Yeah.
dad had a car breakdown, and he had us kids build a wall of snow around it so he could work on it.
That's something.
And the next season, we were on our way.
I worked for a company in Cleveland, and the nickname was the Mistake by the Lake, but actually there's a lot of cool things in Cleveland.
Yeah.
There really is. It's a good city, good people, good vibes. I enjoyed working. I enjoyed being there, but yes, it can be challenging. That's why you're here.
Right.
So where did you go to school?
Apache Junction, grade school, high school, graduated in 70 at the high school there, and in 70 we moved from there to Prescott for the summer, and then I moved back to Phoenix and started my automotive career there.
So what got you, when did you first know you liked drag racing?
I first started going to drag racing out to Beeline
Who took you?
myself.
So this is after you moved back.
Yeah, when we got, let's back up here on that one. That you say that. When I was in high school, we had this one guy. He had already graduated. He was like 4 years ahead of me, and he used to drive this '67 Chevelle up and down the road in front of the high school. Jim Pee Wee McDade.
McDade, yeah,
Yep.
there you go. Yep.
And he was always running and racing anybody and everybody that he could. We had one other guy there in high school, Dave Jasmine. He had bought a '67 Chevelle, and it was same color burgundy as Jim's was. Every weekend, he'd come home or come back to school, he had a ticket. And it was like, I keep getting blamed for Jim McDade because our cars are the same. So he took his car to Mako and had it painted lime green.
Problem stopped?
Problem stopped. So, but then it was after that after I graduated high school, that when I moved into Phoenix, that Beeline. What's Beeline? Well, that's where they all go drag racing. We got to go out there. So we all loaded up in the car and headed out to Beeline, and been drag racing ever since.
What's your first memory of what your thoughts when you first, because did you go for the Winter National or you just went for a regular event?
I think it was for the Winter Nationals, but one of the main draws that I saw was Johnny Loper's funny car. Okay, and I'll never forget the old guy. He'd rip off the top of an oil can and dump it into the motor between rounds. You're trying to get it all back together, and I watched him race his Maverick and his Anglia, and he's quite the man, you know. Then from there, we go in, hey, we need to get some car parts. I was always into Fords, so I'd go into Lopers, and they'd laugh me out of the store. We don't, nobody has any Ford stuff here. So I ended up going to Goosex. Bought my first set of fender well headers from Bill's dad. So
Everett Gusick.
Yep.
What was your first car?
My very first car was a '57 Ford pickup, and I had that through high school. I sold it just after or just before I graduated. Then when I got out, moved into Phoenix, I had bought a 55 Ford, four-door Fairlane, and I proceeded to take it up to Central and make a fool of myself.
Not knowing any better.
Nope. So
The when you got your, were you old enough to drive when you got your truck, or it was one of the projects you got before you?
actually, my brother owned the truck to begin with, and he was coming back from college and for Thanksgiving and blew the engine up in it, and I was just turned 16,
Okay.
and so I ended up with the truck. Had to put a motor in it, so I started to learn how to do things like that. And
Was your dad mechanically inclined?
not 1 ounce of mechanical ability.
What did your dad do?
Well, my dad was basically a jack of all trades. He started off in Ohio. He worked construction, and one of the things that he would do is, we lived on a farm, and there was a big building out back, and he would build trusses for the company he worked for. So he'd build the trusses, they'd take them there and build the houses. And then when we moved from Ohio to here, my dad built a trailer out of plywood and metal framework, put it on behind our 57 Buick station wagon, loaded everything we had, and us kids and cats and dogs, and we were headed to Flagstaff. And we got to Apache Junction, and that's where we stopped. So
Quite a bit of difference between Flagstaff and AJ.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Wow.
The night we pulled into Apache Junction, we came in through Grand Avenue to this way, and it was at dusk, and so we didn't know that there were any mountains around. And we get all the way we stopped at the Maverick gas station just this side of Apache Junction, and pulling this trailer and all the cats and dogs and all the other stuff, and the guy comes out to put gas in our car. He's wearing a 6-gun on his hip, and us little kids are like, "Oh my God, a cowboy!" And we ended up with talking to the guy, and he told us that we shouldn't take our car up through. We're going to go up through Canyon Lake, the back way to Flagstaff, and no, you can't do that. It's the road back then was like 1 lane, and it was terrible. So he says, "You guys can camp out in the front yard of my place, and in the morning get up and go on your way." So that night, we waited for him to close the station up. We followed him to his house and got our camping gear out and made our camp. And the last thing my mom said, "Boy, I sure wish we could see some mountains." That morning, when my mom woke up, lo and behold, there's Superstition Mountain. And she said to my dad, "Honey, we're home." That's how we ended up in Apache Junction.
That's awesome. That really is. So did you spend any time as a kid looking for the mine? You lost touch with the
Don't
mine?
even go there. I spent several summers working for a guy, Crazy Jake, that claimed he had the Lost Dutchman, and blew up lots of dynamite and boulders and cactus, and I can tell you a lot of places where the gold isn't.
Yeah.
So
There you go. That's
yeah.
That's a great story. So your parents moved to Prescott. You said, "Yeah, I want to go to Phoenix because
Yeah.
there's more opportunity." So early '70s in Prescott, it's a great place to be, but
There was nothing.
Nothing is
Absolutely nothing.
not like there is now.
Yeah, nothing at all. And so I moved to Phoenix, and the reason why I moved to Phoenix was because I was going to go to the Bible college that my brother and father went to. I went there for the first half a semester, and it's like, this is not for me. So I got a job working at the mobile gas station on the corner, and started wrenching on cars and doing different things. That's where I met Mr. Rat, Ron May, and he had his 56 Chevy, I think it was, running up and down the road, and he took it to Street Strip Automotive, where they put a straight axle into the front of it. And he was quite the the hot dog at the time, you know. So
Mr. Ramjet.
Yep, Ramjet. So
The so you're like getting all these doses of energy from cars. So you went and gone out with some friends to Beeline. Tell me about your first time going out to race.
Worked on the car for a couple months trying to get it to where I thought it would be very competitive.
What was it?
55 Ford.
Okay.
And it had a 292, had a 3-speed on the tree, which it was terrible. So I took it off there. I cut a hole in the floorboard. I got I think it was a Fenton shifter at the time, modified it to fit the 3 on the floor, and took it out there and raced the car. It did, I don't know, 16 something, if that, and but it was fun. After that, it's like, okay, what do I need to do next to make the car go faster and not worry about breaking down? So next thing was find a top loader 4-speed. So I found a 4-speed for it. There was a junkyard down in Sunny Slope. The guy had all kinds of old beat up Ford cars in there, and this is just the thing for you. So drug it home and put it in the car. And next thing was the 9-inch rear end. Had to put one of them in. There was a
You kept finding the weakest link.
yep,
Yeah.
and I kept breaking every one of them. So
You got to a point you said, okay, this is a lot of fun. You've been working at a mobile station. I know that you've had some interesting jobs in places you've worked over the years, in your racing and your passion for cars. Took you through those places and done a lot of stuff on your own as well. Because in most recent years, you have your own business. You've done very good at restoring and, like I said, helping people. But where was your first speed shop job?
National High Performance, working for Mike Brady, yep. And that was really a cool job. I went in there and you know anything about cars? Well, a little bit here and there, and I told him about my car, and I had at that time I had a 65 Mustang Fastback, and we worked there for a while just wrenching on different things, fixing cars. He asked one day, he says, does anybody in here know how to weld? And I said, well, what do you have for welding equipment? I don't. Well, then why are you asking? Well, I saw this ad about somebody can make custom exhaust systems. I thought it'd be something that we could make some good money at. And I said, well, acetylene tank and some coat hangers and we can put an exhaust together. And at the time, in the far bay of the place, was a Camaro sitting there. It happened to belong to Doug Herzog, which he stored it there while he was out doing other things. But Mike put an ad in the paper for custom exhaust systems.
Where was this located?
Is it 2nd Avenue in Van Buren?
202 West Van Buren.
202 West Van Buren, yep. And
No, it's Sun Double Auto.
that's it,
Yep.
okay? So he bought a bunch of tubing and we always got our uniforms on the metal coat hangers, and I said, well, we got the welding rod right there, got the acetylene tank set up, brought the car in and put it on the rack, and I spent the day cutting and welding and did an exhaust system on this car. And boy, they just thought that was just the greatest thing ever. How did you learn how to weld that? I said, well, we had a guy up in Apache Junction, lived up on the hill from us, and he used to be an old machinist, and he taught me how to melt metal with a fire, and that's how I learned.
That was your experience with Brady. So
Yeah.
were you there till it became Service Center? Or?
In fact, yes, he sold out to Service Center, and from there he had a couple of different. One guy, I can't remember his name. He had a Chevy that he was in partners with. He opened up a service center on Central, down. I want to say down around Thomas area somewhere in there, and then there was another. Then Larry had the service center up on Camelback in Central. So I ended up going to, not in the speed business anymore. I went to work for another gas station, actually. One of the guys who I knew, his son from out in Paradise Valley, Grant Richardson, he owned a couple of gas stations, and I went to work for him at the gas stations. And I had my 65 Mustang at the time, and these guys would come into Grant's gas station and always be bragging about how they beat this guy and beat that guy. And Grant says, I got a guy here that'll outshift any one of you. And he'd make bets with the customers that I could outshift them in their cars. And we made a lot of good money that time. So, but then Grant moved on to another gas station somewhere out in Sun City. I worked for him out there.
You beat everybody with a golf cart. So
Yeah, everybody. It was great.
Yeah.
So
beating up on all those old people.
Yeah.
Shame on you, Bob.
So
So in the meantime, you kept moving forward and worked for a couple of different other places. I know where one of the places you worked at was, but your experience in to drag racing got more serious. When was your first purpose-built drag car?
first purpose-built drag car.
Now you didn't do any street racing before that. I know that. So
Yeah, well,
that would be illegal.
yeah.
Okay.
That was the thing, is that after my 55, I actually had coming home from work one night. I fell asleep at the wheel and ran into a parked car, and so that kind of put me out of the drag racing, street racing for a while. Ended up buying a motorcycle, used that for transportation. Had a '69 Ford Mustang that had a Boss 351 Cleveland put in it, and my girlfriend's brother worked at Sanderson Ford, so he took it over there, and in one day he brought it back, painted bright chrome yellow. And that's the car that I played around on Central quite a bit. That car, if I didn't come home over the weekend with at least 3 speeding tickets or drag racing tickets, then I was sick that weekend. I mean, that's the way it was.
You weren't trying.
Yeah, I wasn't trying at all. I ended up losing my driver's license, of course. And every time I'd pull up on Central, the cops knew the car, they pulled me over, I'd get a ticket.
So back in the Central days, several people we've interviewed we talk about our Central Avenue cruising days. Who were some of the heavy hitters in street racing back then, besides you?
What was that again?
The heavy hitters in street racing back then, like
Billy Hall.
Billy Hall, Mr. Mustang.
Mr. Mustang.
Had a camera in his car.
No, it wasn't a camera.
Was
it
it
a 427 tunnel wedge?
Tunnel wedge, okay.
Yes.
That's a story that kind of gets moved around.
Right. And Norm Levitt was his sidekick, and I've become good friends with Norm after several years, but he would tell me that all these people telling all these stories about Billy Hall, they had not a clue about that guy, and he says, I was there, I was living it with him. And
whatever happened to Billy Hall?
He passed away a few years back, but he used to work for SRP, and if he didn't have a beer in his hand while he was driving his car, the car was parked and he was home.
He was kind of like the legend, lore of
he was the John Milner of Central.
And then Scotty Clark was another guy that was
Scott. Yep. Boy, I can see the people. I can't remember the names. Chuck Neidhart was there. He used to have a '68 Shelby GT 500 that he had Don Woodard build him a motor for. Don Woodard was another speed shop in town that he was die-hard Ford, and he used to have a milk truck that could pull wheel stands. When I worked at Loper's, this was in the mid '80s after I worked for you at Performance Plus, and Don would call up and want to order some Ford stuff. And every time he'd order, man, whoever took the order, he got charged full retail price on the parts. I go, well, man, that ain't right. So I told Don one day, I said, hey, whenever you call down here for your parts, I said, ask for me. And I started giving Don jobber on parts like you should be getting, you know, and he was quite a legend himself. So
Yeah, absolutely. The history of that, his business was located right in the area, right where the first Goosey Speed Shop was, official speed shop.
yeah.
So that's really cool.
Where was the first
In Sunny Slope.
Goosey's was?
Yeah.
8837 North Central.
Okay. I went to the one when it was on Indian School.
Yeah, no, so that's
So, yeah.
So, no, that's before they graduated to Indian School to
Right.
to 2101.
Yeah, there you
Indian
go.
School.
Yeah.
That's where I used to ride my bicycle up as a kid. So
Yeah.
I remember that one dearly. But
Yeah.
but it's interesting that Don Woodard, he was the Ford guy. I mean, he absolutely helped a lot of drag cars. Don Woodard helped a lot of drag cars.
Yep.
A lot of circle track guys.
A lot of circle track.
Asphalt racers. It was a Ford guy. He was
Right.
He was the guy.
One of the things is kind of, we talk about Don a little bit. My neighbor down in Levine, Larry was one of the drivers for Don for a while, and they, after a few years, they got into each other's space, and they kind of parted ways on bad terms, and.
They parted on bad terms.
Bad terms from the circle track racing. Larry Myers is his name, and I was over talking with Larry one day about the cars that he had, and I had sold him a 70 Mustang that I had, and we were talking about the different oils that he ran in the car and just back and forth, and he always ran Kendall racing oil, 50 weight. And he said, but the only place I could ever get it was from Don Woodard. He says, I haven't talked to that SOB in umpteen years. And I said, well, man, better, get hold of him or something. Yeah, oh, no, it ain't gonna happen. And so one day, I called Don up and I asked him if he still had Kendall racing oil. Told him what it was. Oh yeah, Bob, no problem. He said, come on down and get some. And so I told Larry, I says, hey, let's go for a ride. I got to pick up some parts. So we went down to Sunny Slope Auto, pulled up in front of the place, and Larry's looking at me like, what are you doing? I said, come on, let's go. So we went inside. Don and Larry was like the best reunion you had ever seen in your life. And it was quite something. Anyway,
that's good memory. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like that's a really good story, and it's nice to bring people together. That's kind of what we try to do with the videos, is also bring memories and stories and collective things together.
Exactly.
So we were on the path of your first real race car.
The first real race car ended up being a 71 Maverick. I had been building a car. I actually had my 67 Nova. That's where I started off with. On Central, I lost my driver's license. So in order to be able to go up on Central, I had to have a different vehicle. So I ended up trading my Honda 750 for a 67 Chevy Nova. And I drove that Nova on Central for 3 years and never got stopped once in the entire time up there. Got my license back. Okay, what am I going to do with this Nova now? So I ended up showing it at the ISCA show cars down at Civic Plaza.
World of Wheels.
World of Wheels. And that's where I met John Mensler. He had a booth selling Darvan, custom front end swaps for the vans. And most of the weekend he was on the other side of the beer can, but he was a great guy. And ran into him over the years at different car events and everything else, and he turned out to be quite an inspiration on a lot of things.
John Mensler was an inspiration for a lot of people. He got me involved at the next level at SEMA, and be involved with the organization itself. John went through you talk about, yes, absolutely, at that time,
Yep.
a lot of beer cans. He, part of his metamorphosis is meeting the right lady,
Yep.
Wendy, and stopped drinking.
Yep.
And
Became a different person.
well, we used to not like each other a whole lot.
Yeah.
And we ended up being, he was one of my best friends still.
Yep.
I think about him every day.
Yep.
But I'm so glad you brought the men's up, because he was the guy who tried to facilitate. If you had something, somebody else was doing something, he'd call you both up, say, you got to get together, and he put people together and not expect anything out of it.
Exactly. And that's just the kind of guy he was.
Yep.
So
You had the Nova, you're gonna,
had the Nova, showed it, and it went through its phases. I went through like 4 years of showing the car. It won every award it could possibly win in the World of Wheels. They kept telling me, well, you need to change it. Why? If I change it, it goes next level. I can't afford that. So, enough's enough. At that point, Larry Nance came into the picture. He won the first slam dunk contest, and one of the guys that knew Larry and knew me put us together and said that he'd be interested in my Nova. I went, okay, so Larry came over and looked at the car, and Larry's 6'11", I think now, or then. Anyway, he sat in the car and the seat was too far, couldn't get it back far enough. So when he won the slam dunk contest, the check that he got was $25,000. When he got it, he come over, he handed me the check. He says, as long as I can sit in the car, you can have this check. So I went to work on moving the seat back 10 inches. He would roll the back window down and drive with his arm out the window, driving the car. Yeah, that was Larry Nance. He was great.
still active in the cars today.
And yes, sir.
I ran into Larry a couple years ago. I was working for Course Exhaust, and his son needed an exhaust system for his car, Larry Nance Jr. We did it, we got a project together, but he was just like, he's such a great guy. I was doing the PRA, Performance Racing Industry show, and I was talking with my boss, and I got my back to the people walking down the aisle, and all of a sudden his eyes light up, and he goes, "Hey, there's Larry Nance." I turned around, "Hey Larry, what have you been doing?" "Chris, what's going on?" No,
that's Larry.
Larry's was good for the sport. I think it was good actually. He brought some people. He definitely brought some teammates into drag racing.
Yes.
James Edwards and some of the other guys. They all wanted cars, and but he also was good for the NBA because he got a lot of people to follow him because he was also a car guy.
Right.
And he ended up racing pro stock and having time of his life. But that's the way your first car. So with that you had I got 25 grand. What do you want to do with it? So
don't ask.
Okay.
Paid for my divorce.
Okay.
Anyway.
Have you ever heard the song that's called "It's Cheaper to Keep Her"?
What's that?
There's a song called "It's Cheaper to Keep Her."
Yeah, no, it was cheaper to get rid of her.
Okay.
Anyway, after that car was gone, I had at that time I had bought a 71 Maverick and put a 460 in it with a Doug Nash 5-speed and narrowed and tubbed, and we used to take it up on Central and stuff. And Larry decided that he wanted a car, a Camaro, and so I ended up building a 67 Camaro to match the Maverick. And so they were both painted black with red and yellow stripes on them, and he would invite me down to the Suns game, and after we'd leave the game, the two of us would pull out on Central with both cars side by side, made a few passes. But
So I've been told. They really can't confirm or deny that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
The second time that happened, we pulled into the library, and as we pulled into the library, this I think it was a BMW, but Larry stopped. It's like, uh-oh, Jerry Colangelo steps out of the car and says, "That sure is a nice car. Don't ever want to see you down here with it again."
Something about his contract.
Yeah, something about that. So, but Larry went on. We built a couple more cars for him, and he at one point in time I had 75% of the Suns basketball team at my house while we were working on Larry's car. So, it was I met a lot of good people.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of good people.
There were a lot of good people in the teams from that year.
Yeah.
So you went on. You built the Maverick. You did take it out the drags.
Yeah.
And then eventually got into dragsters.
Well, the Maverick, it ended up being a real handful. It just, and I know why John Loper wadded his up in a ball at the end of the track. And they just were ill handling. And went to Pomona one weekend, and I used to go there and buy a lot of car parts and bring them back and sell them different things. And we spotted a rear engine dragster, and an ad for it, I should say, and went back to look for it and couldn't find it. And about this when I was working at Performance Plus with you, and there was an ad in National Dragster magazine for this Ford-powered rear engine dragster. Oh, man, this is cool. So I called the guy up and put together a deal and loaded up my truck and headed to Simi Valley, and I pulled up in front of his house. I'd just driven, 5 hours to get there, and it's like I never left my front yard because he had every one of the same cars that I had, and it's like, it was great. We loaded the truck up with the parts and dragster and the trailer, and I headed home, and we got there and we started running the car, and the car ran consistent, like 902, 903 on the money every time. It was just a 460, a power glide, bare bones, nothing, but it was so consistent. I had more fun and won more races with that car, and we worked on it, finally got to the point where it would run an 890. But when it happened, the first thing we did, I had to go out and buy a Super Comp car hauler. So we went out looking for crew cab dually to buy. And everybody wanted Chevy. No, we're getting a Ford. So I finally ended up buying one from Bell Ford, and ran that car for a while, and decided I wanted to go a little bit more modern dragster. That car was a Logie chassis, a top alcohol car had been cut down, and before I sold that car, one weekend there was a race out there at Firebird. It was a 2-day event, Friday and Saturday, and we ran the car Friday, and I went to the finals and won the finals. But on that pass, I blew the engine up going through the lights. It's like, okay, now what? So we loaded the car up and go home, and when I get home, it's like, man, the purse pays $5,000 tomorrow night to run the car, and I mean it's so consistent. We got to do something. So I pulled the 460 out of my tow vehicle, put it in the dragster, took it back out there the following night, and made it to the final round and won the event. The funny part is, the guy that I ran against on Friday night, he hurt his car. He was from Tucson. He went to Tucson, got his car all repaired, showed back up out at Firebird just in time for first round of eliminations. He didn't have any warm-ups or nothing, and he and I both ended up in the finals, and I won the 5 and he won 25.
So, you did a lot of drag racing. What's the thing you like most about drag racing?
The people. 100%. I don't care what you do, what you say. Everybody is willing to help you, or you help them, one or the other. It's the best family that you could ever have.
Along your way and your path, for all of us to get where we are today, and who do you remember? Who in your life do you remember that you wish they were here today? You could say, "Hey, thanks for what you did," or You know, I know that your dad was big in your life, no matter, he wasn't a car guy, but I know you were very, very close to your dad.
Yep. He, every car event.
What's your dad's name?
Richard Flora.
Okay.
Called him Dick. And in later years.
Did you do that to his face or behind his back?
Behind his back, mostly. My father went on, when we moved to Prescott, my mom and dad worked at the church camp up there. And from Prescott, he moved to Phoenix. And
Out the Senator Highway, the Brew Creek
Yeah.
area? Yeah, I know where that's at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They moved to back down to Phoenix, and he worked at the Palmcroft Baptist Church. And from Palmcroft Church, they moved to Sierra Vista and ran the Huachuca Oaks Baptist Church Camp. In all this time at camp and on from there, he took on the name of Pappy, and he used to wear a red cowboy hat, and it was great. Anytime I had a car function, he was there.
But he loved serving the Lord.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
They went on to become co-founders in the CMA, which is a Christian Motorcycle Association, and he wrote the theme song for the group. They ended up moving to Canada, and he became a minister in Canada for 7 or 8 years, and then from there, after he left there, they moved to Kentucky and was living in a mobile home that belonged to one of the members of the CMA, and called my dad up one day and says, "How come you guys never came back to Arizona?" And well, we don't have any place to call home. The week before, I just bought my brother's house out in Mesa. I says, "Got just a place for you."
That's what got him back here.
Yep. So
That's awesome.
I borrowed my dragster trailer, loaded it up, went back to Kentucky. We loaded him up and brought him back home.
That's cool, Bob. That really is. I mean, I know that. Remember when he passed, and you know you're a pretty tough, crusty guy, but I know how much that affected you.
Yep.
And you know he, you know, I could see when you talked about your dad how your eyes light up, and you should be very proud of that. You know, that's part of our cycle through life. But the thing is that you know, we don't always do the right things, we don't do this, but do things that we probably, our parents would, good thing they're not with us 100% of the time, right? Okay? But I guarantee your dad is very proud of you.
Yep.
And as I am too, as having you as a friend over the years. And, you know, you've had some great experiences. You're not done with it yet. I know you had a health scare just recently, but you're doing better now.
Yep.
And you got that under control. Your backyard, your shop area
Yep.
is second to none. You've got some wonderful projects going on. You helped a lot of people, and there's a lot of drag cars that are out there running, street cars out there running, that you've got your fingerprints all over. And I know all those people are very happy with what you've done to help them, and your knowledge of Fords and your passion. You know, it's how you make a living, but you're very reasonable what you charge, and you know, you do. I think you do it so much for the fun of being, like we did in the speed shop days.
Yes.
What do we like about being in a speed shop? We're involved with everybody's projects.
Yes.
And we didn't cost us anything. You know, we had all that fun excitement, but we could spend other people's money for
Right.
them.
Real easy.
Yeah. So what's the name of your business?
Excalibur Enterprise.
Okay. And how do they find you?
Generally by word of mouth,
Okay.
more than anything.
Okay. Give Bill Gusick a call.
Yeah.
He'll tell him how to get
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Give Chris a call. He'll tell me how to get there.
It's you've helped me out several times over the years. I really appreciate you. You know, everything you've done. You've got your backstory's awesome. You've kind of like been all over the spectrum of racing and street racing and helping other people, and you know, we're glad you had a chance to come share your legendary story with us today. Is there anything else you want to say at the end here?
Well, the biggest thing you asked me about the people in drag racing and stuff like that. I enjoy so much to help someone with their car, and it's like, let's fix it, but let's fix it right. And if you don't, if you don't quite agree with what I'm saying, is your car running? Is it safe? It might not be running, but when you leave my shop, it'll be running and it'll be safe. And that's my thing. And I always want the customer ends up being more of my friend and also is involved in building their own car.
Right.
And that to me is more
Like our
important.
friend Brian Acock.
Exactly right.
Yeah, he's had some sweat labor into it. But that's part of your deal too, is they know more about their cars and their vehicles if they're involved with the build of it.
Exactly right.
It's not just turnkey. You would do it if somebody had the money, but that's not what you want to do.
It's not a matter of the money. It's a matter of it's your car. It's your toy.
Yeah.
Let's play with it together. And
Yeah.
that's my whole theme.
So it's Bob. It should be Bob's toy shop.
Yeah, it should be.
Okay. We thank you for being here today, and we're really honored that you spent some time with us. How does it feel to be a legend?
Only in my own mind.
A legend in your own mind. God bless you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Chris.